In the first lesson, when we discussed addition and subtraction of fractions, we discussed how to find the lowest common denominator of 3 or 2 or more fractions so that you can add them or subtract them. I hope you remember the method of finding the lowest common denominator. Now, in the same way, when you want to add rational expressions, now remember, rational expressions behave the same way as fractions that we talked about in lesson 1. A fraction has a numerator and a denominator. A rational expression has a numerator and denominator. In order to add quantities like that, you need the least common denominator. All right, let's now consider, in order to add or subtract rational expressions, we need to find the least common denominator, or LCD. Now, let's refresh our memory on this. For example, let's consider the problem 5 over 6 plus 7 over 4 minus 2 over 15. I'm sure you remember how to do this. First of all, we need to obtain the LCD, the lowest common denominator of 6, 4 and 15. Can you tell me how to find the LCD of these numbers? Well, in order to find the LCD, we factor each number. Alright, 6 can be factored as 3 times 2. 4 can be factored as 2 times 2. And 15 can be factored as 3 times 5. Now, how do we pick our LCD? I hope you remember the method. The method is, we start picking all the factors of the first number. Any of them can be chosen as the first number. But as we have here, we will go in this order. Pick all the factors of the first number. Alright? So to obtain the LCD, we start by picking all the factors without repeating. So we start by picking all the factors of the first number, that is 3 times 2. Now we need to pick other factors from other numbers without repeating. So we come to the second number. Alright, we come to the second number and look at the first 2. And we say, no, I don't want it. Why? Because I have already picked a 2. I now come to the second 2. Do I need that? Yes, I have only picked 1 2, therefore I need that. So in the second number, out of 2 times 2, we have only picked 1 2 so far, therefore we pick that 2. And now we come to the third number and look at 3 and say, yes, I have picked a 3 already, therefore I don't need it. And therefore I will pick that 5. And so, what is my LCD? The LCD is 3 times 2 times 2 times 5. And what is that equal to? Well, in this particular lesson, we are not going to multiply and get the LCD in one number. We will leave it in the factored form. Alright, let's do another one. Find the least common denominator for x plus 3 over 16 x squared y minus x squared over 3x cubed. Now, what is the lowest common denominator? Well, our first denominator is this. The second denominator is this. Let's factor each denominator. Well, actually, in this case, each denominator is mostly factored. What all we need to do is factor the numbers. So we can write it as 16 times x squared times y. The second denominator is 3 times x cubed. Alright. Now, although 16 can be factored, there is no merit in doing in this case because there are no common factors that you can find in 16 and 3. And therefore, the LCD will contain the whole of 16 and the whole of 3. Alright, how do we start picking our LCD? When there are no common factors, the LCD of two numbers is their product. So what is the LCD of 16 and 3? The LCD of 16 and 3 is 16 times 3, that is 48. Alright, what is the LCD of x squared and x cubed? The LCD of x squared and x cubed is the term that contains the highest power. So the LCD of x squared and x cubed is x cubed. And then we have a y left over, and we need that also for the LCD. Therefore, the LCD is 48 x cubed y. That's right. Okay, let's do another one. Find the least common denominator of r4 over r minus 7 times r plus 3 minus r plus 8 over r minus 7. Well, the LCD contains all the factors of the denominator without repeating. We have now the denominators are already factored. That means we pick all the factors of the denominator without repeating. So what do we do here? The first denominator is r minus 7 times r plus 3. We will pick both those factors for the LCD. Alright, we start by picking both these factors. And the second denominator is r minus 7. Do we need to pick it for our LCD? No. Why not? Because we have already picked an r minus 7. And so what is the LCD? The LCD is r minus 7 times r plus 3. That is the LCD. We don't need to pick this r minus 7 because r minus 7 is already picked. So, in order to find the LCD of a number of denominators, what we need to do is factor the denominators first and then pick all the factors without repeating. Alright, let's do this now. 7 over 8k plus 12 over 12k minus 24. Alright, the first thing to do is to factor each denominator. Now, the first denominator is 8k. And the second denominator is 12k minus 24. And how do you factor that? That will be 12 times k minus 2. Alright. Now, first we obtain the LCD of 8 and 12. When you have numbers, we first obtain the LCD of 8 and 12. Can you obtain the LCD of 8 and 12? 8 is 4 times 2 and 12 is 4 times 3. So, to obtain the LCD of 8 and 12, we start picking 4 times 2 and then we pick 3 from the second number. We don't need this 4 because 4 is already been chosen. So the LCD of 8 and 12 now is 4 times 2 times 3, that is 24. So we finished doing the numbers. And now the LCD of k and k minus 2. You see, k is one factor, k minus 2 is the other factor. We need to pick both those factors because they are different. You see, when the denominators contain different factors which are different, you need to pick all those factors. To construct the common denominator or LCD, we pick all the factors of the denominator without repeating. So here the LCD of k and k minus 2 is k times k minus 2. Alright, the LCD of 8 and 12 is 24, and the LCD of k and k minus 2 is k times k minus 2. Therefore, the LCD of the two denominators is 24k times k minus 2. Alright, another one. Find the least common denominator for 5 over 7x squared minus 21x plus 12 over 5x squared minus 15x. Where do we start this? We start by factoring each denominator. Can you factor the first denominator? 7x squared minus 21x. How do you factor that? Well, the only way to factor that is look for the common factor. What is the common factor in 7x squared minus 21x? Have you got it? Yes, look at the number. In 7 and 21, 7 is common. X squared and x is common. Therefore, the common factor is 7x. And when you So we factor out 7x. When 7x is factored out from the first term and x is left there, and when 7x is factored out from negative 21x, you have a negative 3 left. So the factors of the first denominator is 7x times x minus 3. Alright, let's now factor the second denominator. The second denominator is 5x squared minus 15x. Can you look for the common factor there? What is the common factor in 5x squared minus 15x? Look again at the numbers. 5 and 15. 5 is the common factor. X squared and x is the common factor. So 5x is the common factor. When 5x is factored out, what is left here is x. What is left in the second term will be minus 3. So the factoring here gives us 5x times x minus 3. Okay, now how do we pick the LCD? We factored both denominators. Now start like this. What is the LCD of 7 and 5? When there is no common factor, the LCD will be the product of the factors. So the LCD of 7 and 5 will be 7 times 5, 35. Tell me, what is the LCD of x and x? They are the same factors. So you just pick one, which is x. Similarly, x minus 3 and x minus 3 are the same factors. So you just pick one. There you are. So the LCD will be 35 x times x minus 3. And that is the LCD of this denominator. Okay, let's look for another one. Find the least common denominator for x over 2x squared minus 7x plus 3 minus x minus 3 over 4x squared plus 4x minus 3 minus x squared plus 1 over 2x squared minus 3x minus 9. What is the method again? Start by factoring the denominator. Alright, each denominator is a trinomial, and again we are back with factoring the trinomial. I'm sure you are enjoying it by now. Okay, let's start by factoring the first denominator. 2x squared minus 7x plus 3. Well, if you notice here, the way I would look at it, 3 times 2 is 6. 6 plus 1 is 7. That means 2x squared is factored as 2x times x, like this. 2x squared is 2x times x. And positive 3. By now this must be very, very clear to you. The last term is positive. The middle term is negative. That means both factors of that number must be negative. So how do you factor positive 3 using two negative numbers? It will be negative 3 times negative 1. And now the question is, where do I write my negative 3? Is it going to be below 2x or is it going to be below x? Again, look at the way I talk to this. I said 3 times 2 is 6. And 6 plus 1 is 7. So I must write the negative 3 at a position where I can multiply it with the 2x. So you are going to have negative 3 below the x and negative 1 below the 2x. In doing so, we have been now able to show that negative 3 times 2x is negative 6x, and that added to negative x gives negative 7x, and therefore the factors are 2x minus 1, there you are, times x minus 3, and that is the first denominator. Alright, how about the next one? 4x squared plus 4x minus 3. How does that get factored? Alright, can I give you a clue again? Well, the middle term is positive 4. You need to produce a positive 4 when you multiply and add. So look at the clue I'm going to give you. 3 times 2 is 6. 6 minus 2 is 4. Now, how does that going to help you? Well, that means you need to factor the 2x squared as 2x and x, and then as 2x and 2x. You see your 4x squared, the 4x squared will be factored as 2x times 2x, and the negative 3, the last term is negative, means its factors, one of them will be positive and the other will be negative. Alright, again, listen to what I said here. I said 3 times 2 is 6. 6 minus 2 is 4. I need to produce a positive 4. That means I need to factor this negative 3 as a positive 3 times a negative 1. And where do I write the positive 3? If you remember, I said 3 times 2 is 6. I must have the positive 3 here so that I can multiply that with the 2x. So I'm going to have the positive 3 here and the negative 1 below the other 2x. And now positive 3 times 2x is positive 6x, and negative 1 times 2x is minus 2x. That will be 6x minus 2x is positive 4x. That means the factors of 4x squared plus 4x minus 3 is 2x minus 1 times 2x plus 3. Alright. So the second denominator is 4x squared plus 4x minus 3 is 2x plus 3 times 2x minus 1. Now, in picking the LCD, you can see I started by picking all the factors of the first denominator. Now, when you come to the next one, you say a 2x plus 3. Now, do you need to pick it? We haven't picked a 2x plus 3 here. That means we need to pick it. How about the 2x minus 1? No, we don't need it because we have already picked it. So we will pick that 2x plus 3, and now we have picked 2 factors from the first denominator and 1 factor from the second denominator. Alright, let's now go and factor the third denominator and see if we need to pick anything from there. Can you factor that for me? 2x squared minus 3x minus 9. Alright, let me see if you can factor it. You want me to give you a clue? Alright, the clue is 3 times 2 is 6. 6 minus 3 is 3. That's the clue. Alright, factor 2x squared as 2x times x. So 2x squared is going to be factored as 2x times x. And remember, I said 3 times 2. So obviously it means negative 9 has to be factored as a positive 3 times a negative 3. You see? One has to be positive, the other negative. Only that will multiply to give you a negative number. Now the question is, where do I write the positive 3? You see, this negative 9 is going to be factored as positive 3 times negative 3. Where do I write the positive 3? Is it going to be below 2x or is it going to be below x? Now the clue is again the middle term. We want the sum, when you multiply and add, we want the sum to be negative. That means the bigger number has to be negative. So whatever you multiply this 2x, that has to be negative. So negative 3 will be written here and positive 3 over here. Why? Because we need a bigger negative number so that when you add to the smaller positive number, our result will be a negative number. So we will have negative 3 below x and positive 3 below the 2x. And that gives me negative 6x plus 3x is negative 3x. So what are the factors of the last denominator? The factors are 2x plus 3 times x minus 3. And now, do we need to pick any of these? First we said 2x plus 3. But a 2x plus 3 has already been picked. The second factor here is x minus 3. But x minus 3 has already been picked. And therefore, we don't need to pick any factors from that third trinomial. So what is our LCD? Our LCD is 2x minus 1 times x minus 3 times 2x plus 3. So once again, after factoring the denominators, we pick all the factors without repeating. Start picking all the factors of the first denominator, then pick those factors that are not already being picked. That gives us the LCD as 2x minus 1 times 2x plus 3 times x minus 3. Okay, I hope that is clear. We are going to use this in our next lesson. So you must be very, very thorough with this. Alright, let's try this now. Find the least common denominator for this. Although this looks like you have been asked to add the rational expressions, you are not required to add it. That we will do in our next lesson. What all we are going to do here is finding the least common denominator. Alright, this is simpler than the one we just did. Why? Because all these denominator trinomials, the coefficient of the first term is 1. That will make it very simple. Okay, factor each denominator. Can you help me factor z squared plus 4z minus 12? You don't need to write down anything. You can factor that in your head. Now how? The question you need to ask, because the coefficient of z squared is 1, you simply work out in your mind what two numbers will multiply to give negative 12 and add to give positive 4. What is the answer? The answer is positive 6 times negative 2. So this negative 12 can be factored as positive 6 times negative 2. Positive 6 times negative 2 is negative 12, and positive 6 added to negative 2 is positive 4. So what are the factors of this? Z plus 6 times z minus 2 are the factors. Okay? Can you think like that for the next one? Z squared plus z minus 30. Can you factor that for me the same way? Z squared plus z minus 30. The same question you ask. What two numbers will multiply to give you negative 30 and add to give you positive 1? Can you find those two numbers? Two numbers that when multiplied will give you negative 30. That means one number is positive, the other is negative. And when they are added, you must get a positive 1. And those numbers are positive 6 and negative 5. Positive 6 times negative 5 is negative 30. And positive 6 added to negative 5 is a positive 1. So what are the factors of this denominator? It will be z plus 6 times z minus 5. So, well, before we do that, we can say we factored the first denominator, and to construct our LCD, we pick both of those factors. Alright, now let's factor the second denominator. We already factored it. What's the factoring there? Z plus 6 times z minus 5. Now, in the LCD, we have already picked a z plus 6. So, do we need to pick this z plus 6? No. But z minus 5 has not been picked. Therefore, you need to pick that z minus 5. Okay, we factored two denominators. Let's now factor the third denominator. I'm sure you can do that for me. Z squared plus 2z minus 24. It should come out quickly now from your mind. You see, two numbers when multiplied will give you negative 24, and adding gives you positive 2. That is positive 6 and negative 4. So the factors of this are z plus 6 times z minus 4. Alright, do we need z plus 6 in the LCD? No, we don't. That has already been picked. But z minus 4 hasn't been picked. Therefore, we need that. Let's pick that. So, we started by picking all the factors of the first denominator. Then we picked those factors from the remaining denominators that are not already being picked. So what is the LCD? The LCD is z plus 6 times z minus 2 times z minus 5 times z minus 4. The LCD contains 4 factors. Alright, now this is a very short lesson because I just wanted to develop the skill of finding the LCD. And now in our next lesson, we are going to use this skill to add and subtract rational expressions. Now, the first thing before you add or subtract rational expressions is to obtain the LCD. So that's why we did this here. So in the next lesson, we are going to use this skill in order to add and subtract rational expressions. And I'll see you for that in a little while. All right.